Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Leeson, and welcome as ESPN Classic presents the 1952 light heavyweight championship fight between champion Joey Maxim and the great Sugar Ray Robinson. A dominant champion since winning the welterweight crown in 1946, Robinson moved up in weight and captured the middleweight crown, defeating Jake LaMotta in 1951. At the height of his boxing skills, Robinson became a world-renowned figure in and out of the ring, as Dan Patrick explains in this excerpt from Sports Century.
I've never enjoyed boxing. It's just a business with me, and I guess I know I've never enjoyed it.
Just 3 months after winning the middleweight title in early 1951, a jubilant Robinson gathered his friends and hangers-on and took off for Europe.
It was like the triumphant tour of a king, with everybody attending to the king.
The party ended that July in London. Robinson lost his crown to Englishman Randy Turpin in 15 rounds. 2 months later, Robinson regained the title, beating Turpin on a TKO in the 10th before 61,000 at the Polo Grounds. Emboldened, he reached for the next level, challenging Joey Maxim for the light heavyweight crown at Yankee Stadium in June of 1952.
He boxed that evening beautifully. Maxim never really landed a punch, but it was one of the hottest nights ever. I think it was 106 degrees at ringside.
During his 26-year career, Robinson was 175-19 with 6 draws. Later, we'll hear from Maxim as he reflects on his duel with Robinson. But right now, let's go back in time to a sweltering Yankee Stadium for the light heavyweight championship fight between Sugar Ray Robinson and Joey Maxim from June 25th, 1952, here on ESPN Classic.
June 25th, 1952, Yankee Stadium, New York. Joey Maxim, world's light heavyweight champion, defends his title against the challenger, Sugar Ray Robinson, in a scheduled 15-round bout. Ruby Goldstein, the referee. Round 1. They meet at the center of the ring, and you can see that Robinson, in dark trunks, is almost as tall as Maxim. Robinson, the middleweight champion, stands 6 feet, just an inch shorter than Maxim. But there's a big difference in their weight tonight. At the weigh-in, Maxim tipped the scales at 173 to Robinson's 157.5, giving the light heavyweight champion a 15.5-pound advantage over Sugar Ray. The question tonight is, can the good little man beat the good big man? The experts say he can, for Robinson is the slight favorite. He has won the welterweight title, now holds middleweight honors, and is determined to join the charmed circle of Triple Crown winners. You can see that Robinson is effective at long range. His forte is speed and maneuverability. But when they get in close, watch Maxim wrestle and throw his weight against the lighter man. The temperature at ringside is 104 degrees, the hottest June 25th ever recorded in New York. It's a virtual cauldron beneath those lights, and the intense heat is bound to take its toll. Again, they move to close quarters. Maxim pins Robinson's left arm and wails away with his own left. A partial slip by Robinson. Maxim's glancing left hook knocked Sugar off balance as he was going backward. Maxim keeps moving in, trying to stay at close quarters so he can use that weight advantage. Robinson keeps moving, dancing, punching. He's called the dancing master. Watch his footwork, up on his toes, bouncing. But how long will he be able to stay up there? He's the one doing most of the moving, but on a hot night like this, judgment of pace can be a telling factor. In round two, we see the same pattern unfolding, the same strategy. Robinson, the master mover, the superb stylist, continues his boxing lesson, while Maxim plods forward, attempting to come to close quarters so that he can use his weight advantage to wear Robinson down. They touch gloves, each feeling he had hit the other on the break. Both landing solid left hooks, with Robinson scoring the crisper punches. You notice that referee Ruby Goldstein, trying to keep all punches in sight, does a lot more moving than Maxim. Watch how he makes a little hopping turn as the battle shifts around the ring. Robinson comes up with a beautiful left-right combination to the jaw. That combination is one of the most powerful weapons in his arsenal of punches. You see how much more moving Robinson does than Maxim? But how long can he keep it up in this 104-degree heat? Stamina is what counts, and while both are in superb condition, neither man is young for a fighter. Robinson, 31 years old, Maxim, 30. 48,000 fight fans sweltering here in Yankee Stadium. 48,000 fans who have paid a total of $422,000 to see this contest for the world's light heavyweight crown. No radio or home television coverage. Maxim working close again, pinning Robinson's arms and leaning heavily upon him. Robinson can infight all right, but it's to his advantage not to do so against a heavier man. Sugar Ray gets in some good right uppercuts before the bell. Round three, and now you're beginning to see a change in tactics. Robinson's using his jab more and ducking, where in the first two rounds, he was continually dancing. Here, perhaps, is the first telltale sign that Ray realizes the need to pace himself, to slow down a bit because of the heat. No change in Maxim's style, though. Maxim, in the light trunks, keeps trying to work close and throw his weight against the smaller man. These are the instructions of his canny manager, Jack Doc Kearns, famous as the old-time pilot of Jack Dempsey. Ruby Goldstein, the third man in the ring. Robinson goes to work on Maxim's midsection. But Maxim seems unaffected, unhurt by that barrage of punches. Robinson got over a terrific right to the jaw. One of his best punches, and certainly the best punch of the fight up till now. You might almost compare this fight with the classic race between the tortoise and the hare of Aesop's fable. In Robinson, we have the flashing speed and agility of the hare. In Maxim, the plodding technique of the tortoise. The hare nearly won the race, and in the final seconds of the third round, the fight so far belongs to Sugar Ray. Robinson begins round 4, still shooting hard rights to the jaw, still up on his toes, still full of bounce. Ray comes from Detroit, Michigan. He began his professional career in 1940, and in 134 fights since, has lost only 2, with 2 draws and 1 no decision. He's never been knocked out. Ray Robinson's real name, Walker Smith. Maxim, you notice, is now attempting to move in, not only for the purpose of using his weight, but to land a few body punches that will take some of the steam out of Robinson. This is the 100th fight for Joey Maxim, who was born Giuseppe Antonio Berardinelli. A Cleveland boy, he turned pro at 18 and was called Maxim by a local sports writer because his left-hand shots resembled a Maxim silencer, striking with machine gun speed. Maxim, by the way, has unusually small hands for a fighter. You can see Sugar doesn't like to work in close. In the clinches, he keeps pulling his head back. Maxim doing very little punching to the head, concentrating on the body. Robinson got in 2 lefts in a row. Missed his right. Experts call Robinson one of the greatest at throwing a punch while in retreat. He's very accurate with both hands while moving backward, catching a man coming in. He backs away from that one with just a few seconds remaining in the round. Robinson picking up the pace a bit in round 5. Still on his toes, still sharp. His superior speed and timing still very much in evidence. You notice Maxim holds his guard well up. He's been taking some solid shots to the head, but evidently doesn't feel that Robinson has the power to hurt him in the body. the dark trunks, misses a right hand. And watch how quickly Maxim pulls him in close, still trying to throw his weight upon the lighter man. Notice the variety of punches used by Robinson and the different angles from which he fires them. For weeks, he's been studying movies of Maxim's earlier fights, and he feels he knows the champion's style, move for move. His boxing tonight certainly proves it. Robinson became middleweight champion of the world by knocking out Jake LaMotta in 13 rounds back in 1951. Maxim took the world's light heavyweight title away from Freddie Mills a year before in London. Round 6, and already you see a continuation of the same strategy we found in earlier rounds. Robinson's aim? To outbox and outspeed Maxim, a heavier man with a 15.5-pound advantage. Maxim's aim? To use that weight advantage as a means of wearing down his lighter, faster adversary. Robinson throwing in that right-left combination, then stepping back out of range. There he goes again with a left. Robinson still full of bounce, still moving deftly, anticipating his opponent's moves. See how Sugar rolls with a punch? How he moves back from Maxim's left hook? As we near the end of round 6, the fight so far easily belongs to Sugar Ray.
In the United States in 1952, the average income was $4,400. Minimum wage was 75 cents. The average American car would run you $1,800. Gas cost 27 cents a gallon, and a first-class postage stamp was 3 cents. In 1952, Harry Truman was in his 7th and final year as president, having decided not to run for re-election. The war in Korea raged on for a 3rd year with no end in sight. In the November election, voters decided that they liked Ike and elected Republican Dwight D. Eisenhower as the nation's 34th president, ending 20 years of Democratic administrations. Heading into his fight with Robinson, Maxim held several advantages over his better-known foe. One was familiarity. The other was physical strength, as Maxim explains.
Sugar Ray was, they say he's the greatest. So we were amateurs together. We were the amateurs together. He won the New York Golden Gloves, and I won the New York Golden Gloves middleweight. And he was a lowweight or lightweight or whatever. It was not a tough fight. It was a very easy fight for me because I boxed heavyweights. I boxed all heavyweights, you know. I pushed him. He's the only fighter that I ever fought that I pushed. They generally pushed me, going backwards, you understand? In other words, he was on the defense.
After the 1952 fight with Maxim, Robinson would never challenge for the light heavyweight belt. He did regain the middleweight title 3 more times, however, between 1955 and 1960. Now let's get back to the 1952 light heavyweight championship fight between Robinson and Maxim here on ESPN Classic.
The ability of the cornermen in a long, grueling fight in such high temperatures is going to mean a great deal in the clutch rounds ahead, as we'll see. Remember, it's 104 degrees under those lights. Here in round 7, we see the same pattern, but you notice that Robinson has slowed down the pace a bit. He's punching a little more flat-footed, but still moving, presenting an elusive target. That left jab of Robinson snaked in so fast before that last clinch, it was little more than a blur to the eye. You could barely see it. Maxim, in light trunks, is taking a pounding as Robinson beats him to the punch. Blows that knocked out Rocky Graziano, that stopped Jake LaMotta, are being absorbed by Maxim as he moves in for more. The fast pace and overwhelming heat have slowed down referee Ruby Goldstein. The little hop that Ruby always takes when he makes a turn in the ring is gone. Beautiful barrage to the body by Robinson. Robinson moves and circles behind his left hand, but Maxim continues to press him. Notice how the cornermen stay with their fighters with wet towels and sponges until the last split second. Round 8. Robinson, still the sharper puncher, still the complete boxer, but slowing just a bit from the early pace. Referee Ruby Goldstein has slowed up perceptibly. Maxim still relying primarily upon his 15.5-pound weight advantage and his great physical condition. Robinson still firing to the head. He used body punches earlier, but they seem to have had no effect on Maxim. That's the third time in this round Maxim has worked his way in, forcing the referee to intercede. You get a good idea of how still and humid the air is by watching the cigarette smoke rising from the working press section. I was at ringside that June 25th and read the thermometer with my own eyes. 104 scorching degrees. Robinson throwing fewer and fewer right hands now. He's still moving well, but he's relying mainly upon his left, using it more and more as a defense mechanism to keep Maxim away. And so we see another telltale sign that the lighter man is feeling the heat and the pace. But he is far in front on the scorecards of the three officials and on the cards of the majority of the newspaper men covering the fight. Maxim gets in a light hook to the jaw, and you can see that Robinson, in dark trunks, is slow getting out of there. Both land with rights as they come to close quarters. Despite the fact that he has slowed down considerably, Robinson still is landing more punches than Maxim. The ratio is about 2 to 1. Big bluish welts are beginning to form under Maxim's eyes. He feels those punches thrown by Sugar. A nice right to the body and a left to the head by Robinson. The end of the round. Coming up, one of the most dramatic rounds of the fight. Robinson's manager, George Gainford, Big George as he's called, barks last-minute instructions. And there's the bell, round 10. Maxim looking for the opening, trying to get inside, still keeping his guard high. He's landing those left hooks to Robinson's head. You notice that Robinson, who was trying to stay away before, now is doing a little holding himself. They wrestle to the ropes. Maxim leans on him with both arms. Referee Goldstein is in obvious distress now. He's holding on to the ropes, barely following the fighters in this staggering heat. Many are wondering what has kept Maxim on his feet under the barrage of punches released by Robinson during the previous 9 rounds. And yet, here Joey is, still boring in, still crowding. This is Maxim's best round by far. Not so much because his boxing has improved, but because Robinson is tiring. The crisp counterpunching of his earlier rounds is gone. Robinson misses a right and drops his hands. Another indication that he's tiring under the oppressive heat. Here comes the flash card signaling round 11. But there's a great deal of commotion in the ring. Referee Ruby Goldstein is unable to continue. He's completely exhausted. That's Ray Miller climbing into the ring as his replacement. Ruby is so groggy he has to be helped from the ring by Dr. Alexander Schiff and led to a dressing room. Ruby's through for the evening. Ray Miller, the new referee, as we begin round 11. Robinson doing less moving now. He tries a right to the head and barely grazes Joey's ear. Maxim ties him up again. Again, Robinson, after landing a left hook, drops his arms. You notice, too, that when he goes backward, he lacks the agility he displayed in the early rounds. The Sugar Man is losing his bounce. Robinson is not punching as often or landing as accurately as before. Maxim continues crowding in round 11, as he has from the very first bell. Robinson, a right to the head, then firing to the body. Somehow, after a poor 10th round, Robinson has tapped a hidden reservoir of stamina to become again the aggressor. He's exerting tremendous effort, as you can see. They fought after the bell then, and they touched gloves.
You're watching the great Sugar Ray Robinson as he challenges Joey Maxim for the light heavyweight championship in June of 1952 on ESPN Classic.
That's a mighty tired Robinson. Round 12. Robinson's legs appear about to buckle as he moves backward. We see all the signs of creeping exhaustion in Sugar Ray Robinson. You wonder why and how Maxim, who has suffered the most punishment in this fight, can continue to plod forward. Robinson seems almost to be fighting on instinct now, and yet it's the instinct of greatness. Instinctively, he gives a shift to his shoulders, feinting and faking. Drives Maxim across the ring. That uncanny reservoir of stamina showing up again in Robinson. It's that same hidden strength that brought Sugar Ray off the deck to win over Rocky Graziano, and that helped him reclaim the middleweight title from England's Randy Turpin. That head and shoulder feigning that Robinson displayed in the earlier rounds, and on occasion in the later rounds, is a technique of fighting that has become nearly a lost art, something you rarely see in the modern-day boxer. Robinson's really tired. For the most part, the sting has gone out of his punches. Maxim's like a bulldog in his determination to come to grips, to crowd, to throw his weight around. Round 13. Destined to be the last in this scheduled 15-round bout for the world's light heavyweight crown. A tired challenger, Sugar Ray Robinson, in dark trunks, faces defender Joey Maxim, 15.5 pounds heavier than his opponent. So far, Robinson's superior ring tactics have won him all but a few of the earlier rounds on the official scorecards. Now let's see how this ring classic ended that stifling hot night of June 25th, 1952, in Yankee Stadium. So far, Maxim has done little to win except stay on his feet, crowding all the way, displaying an unbelievable amount of stamina. Maxim bowls Robinson against the ropes and leans heavily on him. A left hook staggers Robinson. Ray misses a right by a wide margin. What little fighting Ray is doing now consists of desperation flurries. Now it's Robinson who's hanging all over Maxim, not to throw his weight around, but to gain support. The heat has him. He'll hang on to anything to keep himself upright. The plodding Maxim hasn't changed his style throughout the fight. Even his hands are in the same position they were in round one, high, right under his chin. Robinson misses a right, slips, and falls flat on his face. Watch him now. His legs are rubbery. He's standing flat on his feet. Maxim senses it and begins crowding more furiously than ever in his first real show of aggressiveness. The end of the round, but they don't hear the bell. Referee Ray Miller separates them. Half unconscious, Robinson reels to his corner, aided by handlers Harry Wiley and Pee Wee Beale. Dr. Alexander Schiff in Robinson's corner, peering into the fighter's eyes for signs of shock or concussion. According to the rules of the New York State Athletic Commission, Maxim is awarded a technical knockout if Robinson's unable to answer the bell for the 14th round. It's all over. Joey Maxim retains the title, light heavyweight champion of the world. Sugar Ray Robinson, unable to answer the bell for the 14th round, becomes a technical knockout victim, beaten down by the heat and frustrated by a man with almost superhuman stamina. Just 2 rounds, just 6 minutes away from joining the ring's charmed circle of Triple Crown winners, Robinson was stopped for the first time in his career. As things turned out, and as Ray planned it, in fact, this was to be his last fight. The triumphant exit of one of the greatest scientific fighters the ring has ever produced. He retired middleweight champion of the world immediately after the big fight